Primary Tourist, Chapter 26. Funny thing about carnivals, if you're not in the mood, if you got the tiniest of hairs up your ass, the magic leaves the room real quick. There was something about the carnival this last time that made me not too sad to be included out, if you know what I mean. It was kind of a perfect storm for a letdown. On the one hand, it wasn't '08 anymore. It never will be again. Just to prove it, I don't think me and a whole bunch of other people will ever get quite as big a hard on for hope, or change for that matter. And forward doesn't quite do it. And it was my third time at the carnival. The new car smell was starting to fade just a little bit. So just drinking a beer at the Radisson didn't have any oomph left in it. So Hunter Thompson used to drink there, and me too. That didn't make me Hunter Thompson any more than having a world premiere made political suicide death of a salesman. In fact, if you had even an ounce of self-doubt in your makeup, you might start thinking yourself as a hanger-on, or worse yet, a poser. Maybe not a poser, but not a state resident either. It was time to shit or get off the pot, as the saying goes, and I wasn't quite ready to do either. Third time's a charm? Not too fucking likely. You know what, though? The more I thought about the morning, about the rugs, the more I asked, who was going to tell that woman's story? Maybe I didn't get the word out too great on that, but I at least saw her predicament as a worthy story, as worthy a story as either Mitt or any of the not Romneys. The Great White was as likely to be there as anywhere. And I did have a truly worthy sidekick this time around. And even an off-year carnival was better than no carnival at all. And nothing screams carnival more than the Radisson and Media Central. Or so we thought. Not much was going on, so we headed over to the Occupy compound. I think Vermin was there, and that alone was worth the trip. What I didn't detect was any sign of behind the eight ball urgency coming from any of the candidates' headquarters. So many of the candidates were into writing off New Hampshire as too liberal for the party that embraces the Tea Party, except for Romney and Huntsman. They had to do well in New Hampshire. Of course, Romney had the budget to really crank up the machine, which he did. He won it big, in spite of the fact the electorate knew him. And Huntsman came close to doing what he had to do. A third place finish was okay, but he really had to be closer to 20% than 17%. So he was able to claim he punched one of the three tickets out of town pundits say exists out of New Hampshire, but his ticket couldn't get him very far out of town. Then there's Ron Paul. He finished a pretty strong second, but no one thinks Republicans will actually nominate him, no matter how many votes he gets. They'd rather nominate a guy that no one really wants to nominate. Hell, not Romney was almost as popular as not Obama, who was almost as popular as not Bush back in '04. But as for the guys whose name was actually on the ballot, none of them really inspired much inspiration. Say what you will about the disappointment of '08. There were a bunch of candidates that were truly inspiring. Obama, Hillary, McCain, even some second-tier candidates had some real dedicated workers. There was something about the end of W's reign that made us all just a little giddy. That was what was so ingenious about hope and change. You got to have hope or you have nothing. And W was leaving, so change was a given too. So if you own hope and change, well, the Oval Office is like 1, 2, 3. Because more than numbers, politics is about how many hearts you own. And New Hampshire was a great place to see it all go down, to see whose workers really, really felt the greatness, but beyond that, the goodness of the chosen. because once they believe, they'll do anything for that person. They'll climb the hills of Manchester in the winter of the primary. They'll keep working on primary day at Hillary's headquarters back in '08. Too busy to hear about how dead she was supposed to be. Did I tell you about that, sir? I stepped into Hillary's headquarters primary day just for a second because there was a little handheld sign on the door that said Hillary tonight, or was it Hillary 7 o'clock, whatever the hell it said. I had to inquire within. It took about 10 seconds to find out that the sign referred to the night before, and the activity now was a group of determined, mostly women, working to see Hillary win New Hampshire and then the White House. They got to see one, but push come to shove, '08 wasn't quite Hillary's year for the second one. She gave it one hell of a run, though, and it really started with these women working their tail off in New Hampshire. History in the making, that's what New Hampshire is all about. Maybe that's where the Great White was hiding out, camouflaged by all that history. I remember the vibe at Hillary's headquarters that day. It was, or at least it seemed to me, less determined to win than scared shitless to lose. Because make no mistake about it, anything other than victory tonight and Hillary's run was on its last leg. I don't care what anybody says, nothing motivates more than losing. Show me an elated winner, and I'll show you an imaginative SOB that saw the humiliating picture of him or herself losing. And in Hillary's case, it would be a doubly bitter pill because the original blueprint had the keyword inevitability all over it. After New Hampshire, it was going to be all over but the cheering. Their back was definitely to the wall. And so was Mitt on the Republican side. But his worker bees just didn't have that oomph that you need. It could be that Mitt himself was lacking in oomph. I got a couple of oomfless Mitt primary day stories from '08 that says it all for me. I overheard this conversation on Elm Street in Manchester. Are you from Massachusetts? No, we're from Virginia. That's why you are voting for Mitt. Translation: the more you know him, the less you like him. That's our Mitt. The second story was another conversation I overheard, this one in front of Romney headquarters. It wasn't really a conversation, it was more like a real inane monologue. A guy with the Romney campaign was talking to a kid, a college kid maybe. He was telling the kid about the importance of sign placement in a way that anybody could tell he didn't even believe himself. How can anybody else believe him? For one thing, just the way the guy came across, he seemed a perfect fit for Mitt. And believe me, that ain't a compliment. I instantly thought the guy felt he was above the peons that were volunteering their time for Mitt. Imagine the indignity, sign duty, with a bunch of kids. I don't remember a thing about the guy except that he was every bit as unlikable as Mitt himself. And he would probably think that was a compliment. Tell you the truth, I'm not sure this story has a point, unless it's maybe Mitt attracted some twisted combination offensively dismissive with bland vanilla. Because that's what Mitt was. Tell you one thing about primary day '08, it was a hell of a beautiful day. I seem to remember it was in the 60s. There were mounds of snow from earlier, colder days of winter, but it felt like spring was in the air. Really, looking back on it, it was great to be alive. And I had no clue. All I could think of was how I was letting the Great White get away. Because make no mistake, he was up there somewhere, hiding in plain view. The most discouraging thing in '08 was the gap between the cash needed to live the dream and living the dream. Maybe my problem was picking the wrong dream. because my dream was always just out of reach by the numbers, the dollars and cents numbers. The whole thing was planned a little too close. I was a week away from a bonus. 2 days, really. Thursday, I'll be rich. Well, I'll feel rich anyway. Today, I'm almost as poor as I feel. And today is primary day. That's why I bought a ticket for the last bus home earlier in the day. It was going to be earlier than I had hoped, but my crystal ball thought that things would be all over by the time I got on the bus. And by all, I, like so many others, thought Hillary's political career was included. Bye bye, Hillary, I, and the intelligentsia were preparing to say. Little did we know. My plan for the evening was to go to the Palace Theater to watch the results come in with Dan Rather. He was filming an episode of Dan Rather Reports there, and I had a ticket. Before I could go in, though, I had to have my bag checked. Excuse me, a big burly security guard said to me. I got to check your bag. Oh, I handed over the bag. So, did you vote today? Yes, I did. And his body language told me, don't even think about asking me who I voted for. So I didn't. And I got my bag and I walked in. The place was nowhere near packed, but it was pretty cool awaiting the results with kind of sort of a legend. And he had a panel of insiders from both sides. For the Republicans, we had an old chestnut named Mike Murphy. Is that right, sir, calling a person a chestnut? Isn't that supposed to be songs and shit? But really, in both the games of politics or network news, people are like songs, are like cereals or shaving cream. They're all products, only as good as your ratings. And I mean today's ratings. None of this waltz through memory lane bullshit. Then again, what's Dan Rather but yesterday? Don't get me wrong. It's better to be yesterday than no day. Better to be a has-been than a never was. And this Mike Murphy worked for a ton of campaigns, both winners and losers. And that included two of the frontrunners for the '08 nomination, McCain's run in 2000 and Romney's successful campaign for governor of Massachusetts in 2002. He had a lot of TV experience. My recollection of him was that he was what is now a dying breed, a reasonable Republican. Not that I necessarily thought so at the time. It's just that the current batch is god awful. You know what the scariest phrase in the English language is? It could be worse. It gives me chills just thinking about it, and not in a good way. But getting back to '08, here I am nostalgic about this guy that at one time or another worked for Jeb Bush, John McCain, Mitt himself. Shit, Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger. I admit I respect McCain, but the rest of them? Yet I'd gladly trade this Murphy guy for any of the current crop. And don't get me started about the Tea Party. The ironic thing is, with all this crazy shit going on, I'm the guy that has to live in an asylum. On the Democratic side, there was Donnie Fowler. He led Gore to all but actual victory in 2000. What an alternative universe that would have been. Imagine that, sir, if we had never heard of hanging chads and any images of President Bush was of Georgie one term, a faint memory of the 90s. Who knows? We might have even avoided 9/11. Shit, if we had Obamacare before Obama, I might have taken care of my blood pressure and I might not have had a stroke and I would never have known about life in the asylum. Not yet, anyway. If only. Ifs and buts and fruits and nuts all over again. My stroke happened. And Bush Cheney happened too. There was another guy on the panel, a guy I'd never heard of before. His name was Drew Weston, and he was a psychologist. His hypothesis actually in '08 and maybe every time proved right. What he said was that when it came to getting votes, the heart was way more important than the head. And the proof was in the fact that people in poll after poll agreed with Democratic positions, yet when it came to results, not so much. Hope and change worked, and it's hard to claim that that was an appeal to the head. Because when you get down to it, hope and change doesn't say shit, but it sure does feel good. Emotion rules the day. Hey, sir, maybe that's my problem. I think when I should feel. It seems my feelings just hurt so much these days. I might as well just lose myself in thought, but maybe that's wrong. Either way, I end up in the asylum. It's all an asylum, really. The carnival, even worse than here. I see it now. Not then. It all seemed so important, so much a tempest with no teapot. Now I see how silly it was, thinking the election results really mattered in my life. The early results started to come in. McCain had a big win. That was obvious. Very solid. But not many Republicans voted in 2008. Both Clinton and Obama were revving up their base. Young men, young women, middle class women, college kids, and the Republicans had, well, the status quo. Don't underestimate that. But '08 was a bad year for the status quo. I mean, there's not much hope in that and no change. Early results looked very good for Hillary. Obama's camp was disappointed that they got only 40% of the total, but damn, in a field that big, 40% is huge. Damn sight better than what McCain got, I'll tell you that much. But anyway, Dan and Mike and Donnie and whoever the fuck else were looking at the results, what they all meant, blah, 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 when the weirdest thing happened. A cry came out from the doctors on the balcony. Something definitely off script. Tell them about the real story, Dan. Tell them about 9/11. Don't be a coward. Whoa, heavy. I had such a fucking flashback to '04, to Howard Dean calling for security, to Al Franken in the tackle. Except that Howard Dean was replaced with Dan Rather, and the only security was that guy that looked through my bag and didn't want to tell me who you voted for. And Dan didn't even have to call for security. And never mind answering the question of a crazy man. We can just laugh off his existence, and that don't seem fucking fair. The whole panel joined in laughing off his existence. This time, as best as I can tell, there was no tackling. Isn't the whole thing kind of weird, sir? I mean, I've been to the palace twice my whole life, and the same fucking thing happened both times. You gotta understand, these events are usually pretty staged. Oh, every now and then, an off message sign gets in somehow, and nearby you never know when Vermin was going to show up. But these two times were different. It's almost as if they were caught with their pants down the first time. So the second time they were going to shut things down. No more Mr. Nice Guy. You know what I mean? Of course, the second time was more of a kamikaze attack. One man standing up for truth, his truth anyway, and he had to know that he was going down. Don't be a coward, he said. Maybe he wasn't talking to Dan Rather at all. Maybe he was talking to himself. Sometimes it's the voices in our own head that scream the loudest. I'm beginning to understand that on a real visceral level, living in a madhouse and all. As results continued to come in, it seemed that the common wisdom was all too common, at least on the Democratic side. Hillary cried quite publicly the night before the primary, and some said that that provided just the bump she needed. They have to say something. They can't just say, we fucked up. We really can't tell the future any better than anybody else. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. Because the truth is, The primary is more and less than what it appears. And I didn't have a clue then, had no idea what the election was about, who the election was about, more like it. It was a full 4 years before I had a glimpse of New Hampshire for homeless, and 5 years before I was homeless myself, which I still am. What's that? Here? Home? I can't even believe you said that. Come on. I remember what a home is, and this isn't it. A roof on my head, that's the best I can say. Still, that's not nothing, I guess. The point is, though, I didn't realize it, but the election wasn't about 9/11, about Iraq, about neither hope nor change. It's about that lady's fucking rungs and the fire that enveloped them. And me, damn it, I'm as homeless as any of them. It's not you, it's me. The richest country in the world, or one of them, and we don't even have a home. Not all of us. Hey, maybe that's what happened to the great white. As invisible as any of us homeless. So anyway, it was getting to be time to go, and the reality was starting to sink in that my bus was going to leave before Hillary and Barry knew how they did on the day, before the spin masters even knew what they had to spin. Obama was staging a comeback, was within a couple of percentage points, and it was there when I had to enter the darkness. Waiting for the bus, I struck up a conversation with a young woman who was rooting for Hillary big time. I think she thought I felt the same way. Hillary was still winning as we entered the bus. Once the bus was moving, things were eerily silent. Not a single conversation was audible. Nothing was hanging in the air. All the answers were to be found in their laps. From the source of the light, it seemed everybody had their own private orb. Everybody, that is, except me. I kept on looking for someone to talk to ask about results, to be connected with, to rescue me from solitary confinement. The bus inched toward Providence, and no one came my way. I was completely isolated from percentage of precincts reported, vote totals, dueling spin masters. I tried looking out the window, but even that didn't work. The highway was as dark as night itself. I felt so all alone. It's hard to conceive now just how clueless I was about loneliness. That's the crazy thing about living in a madhouse. No privacy, yet plenty of loneliness. But at the time, I was pretty lonely on that bus. Before you knew it, we were back in Providence. Carnival was all over for another 4 years. Then we were disembarking in Providence. Hillary fan stopped me, and she was kind of beaming. Hillary just won New Hampshire. I'm sure my face looked stunned. I didn't really know how to react. Wow, I had no idea. Primary Tourist, Chapter 27. You know what's really weird, sir? There's all these pundits and spinmeisters and politicians and statesmen, and of the whole lot, you know who's the wisest? Vermin. I mean, all politicians are vermin, but he is vermin supreme. When all's said and done, doesn't that say it all? When we met up with Karina just this past primary day in front of Occupy, Vermin was there, and I got to watch another first timer experience Vermin. And they've never experienced anything quite like that before, and it's always a hoot to watch. He had his megaphone with him. And now that I think about it, he had a very kid friendly message. Vote for me and get a free pony. I am the only candidate that promises you free ponies. Free ponies, mommy? That's what the man said. You could see Karina was delighted with Vermin. That Vermin, he sure can be a charmer. And when you get your pony will get a tattoo on its ass, and you will get a tattoo on your ass. And if they don't match up, boy, are you in trouble. I'm not exactly sure why, sir, but that line always cracked me up. I mean, what's more absurd? Your pony getting a tattoo? Or you having to get the same tattoo? Or maybe the whole idea of getting a free pony in the first place? Or for that matter, the fact that the guy making these promises has a fucking boot on his head. After Vermin, we decided to see what was going on at the Radisson. I remember going upstairs with a friend of Karina's to maybe get on a radio show or something. If I recall right, they actually wanted to talk with primary tourists like me and Nate, and never really crystallized like so much else this election year. I don't remember much about it, but I do remember having an overview of EJ Dion filming an interview down below. Again, NPR nerd heaven. Only I didn't know it at the time. At best, I thought it was purgatory. Funny, isn't it? I'd gladly take purgatory now, because this place is one of the lower rungs of hell. What I wouldn't give for a trip to purgatory now. It's all perspective, I guess. When you live in hell, any move is a move up. Like now, I think every single aspect of my life is at a low. Love life? Fat chance. Hell, any social life at all is at best dicey. I mean, who wants to come here? And I can't leave here. So I'm stuck here with all the other inmates. I'm not writing. The food's usually pretty good, but sometimes it really sucks. You've heard of the bottom of the barrel? Well, I live there. If you don't mind my asking, where do you live? Smith Hill. I would love to live there, man. I, I'd love to live there. I used to live up there, but you know, that was another third floor walk up. I could never live there now. Just another part of the past that's gone forever. But I used to love the view from up there. Actually, that's one thing about this place that's okay here is the view. But a view should invite. Over here it taunts. Even worse, it threatens. The best part of the view here is the armory, and that has the look of a real well-fortified prison. And I ask you, is that inviting? Not to my way of thinking. All in all, I'd much rather be on Smith Hill. What's that? Of course, it's all relative. It depends on your options, very true. And I have none. So any option seems extra good to me because having no option to living in hell really sucks. I wasn't in hell this time last year, though. I was in purgatory. I was on the wait list for both heaven and hell, free to look for the great white in either line. Little did I appreciate how awesome that place in line was. Now, the great white is nowhere to be seen. I'm stuck in hell, and heaven, Jesus, it's like on the other side of a mile of shit. Time sure does suck sometimes. So, what was going on in purgatory this time last year? I'm trying to remember post vermin. I think we had burritos or something. Mother and daughter went vegan, kind of a self righteous way, too. I hate to admit it. What really sucks is how quickly kids get their self righteous thing from the parents. None any of that makes any difference because my job was to keep mommy away from Rod. Sometimes it's more of a chore taking one for the team than other times. Just like the big boys, I was beginning to think beyond the New Hampshire primary because tomorrow starts, well, tomorrow. Later today, really. Because later today, the whole post carnival world starts. Well, in New Hampshire, that is. In South Carolina, the carnival is just starting. But for the people that were the first among equals for Jesus' 2 years, just about, are now all Cinderella at midnight. The carriage disappeared in the pumpkin patch. Now they're just like the rest of us, powerless. What do you do then with no super citizen illusion to prop you up in your daily struggles against an uncaring world? In 2004, that meant back to the undisclosed location, the group home, I mean, back to Sarah, who had my heart, whether she wanted it or not. She wasn't always very careful with it, that's for sure. And the group home, holy Jesus, that was the little girl with curls scenario. When it was good, it was very, very good. And horror doesn't even begin to describe it when it was bad. Man, those behaviors, let's just say they were inappropriate plus. The thing that really sucked about the whole thing was that as bad as the guys occasionally made it for you, they made it even worse for themselves. Boy, can they beat themselves up. Literally. Did I ever tell you about that? Most of the times the guys attack the aides, bite, scratch, the whole 9 yards. But every now and then, and you can see it building, one guy there would start wailing on himself. It's really disconcerting to watch, I'll tell you that. I haven't even seen that here. And this is as close to a madhouse as I ever really want to get. Bam, bam, bam. The guy punched his face. 1, 2, 3. And he was getting ready to do it again. The 2 staff members detained him, brought him down to the ground. And my heart was pumping, man, like never before or since. You know, the fucked up thing is there's some guys, staff, I mean, got off on that shit. An adrenaline high. Do you know what I mean? Meanwhile, I'm there thinking this is one of the more traumatic moments of my whole fucking life. Just horrific, if you want to know the truth. For me. For some of my colleagues, it was like some fucking badge of honor in a twisted way. They had some kind of warped view that of all the skills you need to be a good staff teammate, the only ones that really count are the physical skills. Fucking arrogance of youth, man. Because in truth, the main idea is you should try to avoid using the physical skills to keep the guys focused. Thinking back on it, I was pretty good at getting the guys focused and in a fun way. Was I a pushover? Probably. More than what was necessary? I don't think so. Because make no mistake about it, those behaviors we were avoiding, they made everybody's day a whole lot darker, especially their own. So, anyway, like I said, 2 guys just swarmed over this guy just before he was ready to pop himself right in the fucking nose. And they were textbook good, man. I'll give them that. These 2 guys went right to the restraint mode, no aggression, except the aggression of a brick wall. Other guys, though, they would take advantage of a situation, get some pops in on the poor bastard, blaming the hysteria of the moment for their own ill will. Hard to believe, but some asshole's self-esteem was so low, he got his rocks off by fucking up the life of some borderline retarded guy. Now I ask you, sir, does somebody so low even deserve to be called human? But he was my colleague, and not the worst one either. Luckily, I felt better about the people on shift that day. I knew they had my back. Whether or not they had the back of the guys they were working for was a much different story. Don't get me wrong, though. I sure did appreciate somebody having my back at the time. Thinking about it now, what was I scared of? The poor bastard was only hurting himself, really, which he did every chance he got. What he didn't know is that we had already called Butler. He was going to be living in a pretty damn close to a real nut house, even more than here. Man, I'd punch hell out of myself to avoid going there. He assaulted himself to go there. If that don't prove he's crazy, nothing will. So anyway, we're in a waiting mode for Butler and for the state cops, who had to be there in order to have all the right T's crossed and I's dotted. In the meantime, we had to deal with the other guys. And I was hoping the cops didn't get there much before the guys from Butler showed up. You remember Jerry, right? The real cool one? Well, he had a thing for cops. Jesus, we'd be taking a van ride, and a cop car would go by, and Jerry'd go all apeshit. Say hi to the police! Say hi to the police! You can't make this up. No wonder I couldn't find the Great White up north. He was hiding out in a heartwarming, inspired, tragic, enduring, undisclosed location in southern Rhode Island. Say hi to police. Jesus, I can still hear him. I loved Jay. I really did. I wonder if he ever misses me. Because every now and then I miss the guy. But I miss everything these days. He's like a kid is what he is. And he's got this kid-like thing for cops. And a cop is going to be in the fucking living room in 5 minutes. The only good thing is that the guys were confined to quarters, which was fucked up because they hadn't done anything wrong, but it was like they were being punished. And if Jay found out there was a cop in the living room, then all bets are off. Ding dong. I answered the door. Hello, I'm Officer O'Malley with the state police. Damn, cops got here first. Fucking wonderful. Yeah, we've got to bring one of our guys to Butler, and we're waiting for their guys. Is this a home for the mentally challenged? You know, sir, I knew exactly what he meant in a way. First off, though, who isn't mentally challenged? I know I am. But never mind all that. Take Jay. Yeah, he's got a super duper low IQ, but he's the perfect, I don't know, the most perfect Jerry. And I don't know, listen to me say it. It sounds crazy to you, but there was a certain genius to it. And Sydney, poor tortured soul, mentally challenged, doesn't really say what he is. He's so much more, you know? And then, hell, every single one of those guys was so much more than just mentally challenged. Yeah, there was only so much time. Hey, do me a favor. One of the guys has a thing for, police. So if you can be as invisible as possible, that would be great. He hates police? No, it's the opposite. He loves police. So what's the problem? Well, think of it this way. He's like an excitable 5-year-old stuck in the body of a 33-year-old. Kind of like a puppy in the body of a bull. Yeah, I like that, sort of. No problem. I'll be as invisible as I can be. I felt a pang in the pit of my stomach as I heard one of my colleagues yell out, "Help!" I rushed back to the living room and saw it full on. The first time was kind of a sideways glance. Pow! Pow! He somehow got a couple of shots to his own head in, but he was restrained again. Before he was, though, I got a good look at his face. Too good a look at his face. Funny thing was, it was a face more full of desperation than anger. I wish I could forget it, to tell you the truth. I think about it a lot these days because, all venting aside, I'm more full of desperation than fear. I'm scared shitless that I'm going to die here. What's that? Thinking like that does me no good? Well, how should I think? If you know a way to think that'll do me any good, please feel free to share with the group. Thank God the other guys stayed in their room. And thank God that the other staff members were better at the physical skills than I was. And a special thanks to Jesus for the guys from Butler not taking too long. I must say, I wasn't really thanking God at the time. I was cursing Jesus, not thanking him. Even when it was over, it didn't feel done. You know what I mean? It was waiting for the other shoe to drop time. Adrenaline high, I guess. I hate fucking adrenaline highs. And I hate the lulls before the storms. And then I hate the storms. The only thing I didn't hate was the guys. In fact, I think I loved the guys. And I hated that fact. I wonder if anybody loves me. The staff, I mean. I don't think so. They have neither the time nor the inclination. I guess I can't blame them. It's a lot of work loving someone that's in a helpless situation. It's fucking heartbreaking if you want to know the truth. This is what I did instead of chasing the great white, plus chasing love, where love had no interest at all of being caught. When all was said and done, it had as good a chance of being caught as the Democrats had of prying power from Bush and especially Cheney. A fool's errand. That's what the carnival was all about that year. All tempest, not enough teapot. I'm not even sure I know what that means, but it sounds kind of good, doesn't it? If I can't actually catch the great white, I can at least leave some traps for him. Still, it was a damn sight better than post-Carnival '08. Damn, talk about ironic. As a carnival, it was tough to beat Barack and Hillary, but I was having a hard time giving a shit. It's almost as if that surreal bus ride as Clinton beat Obama foreshadowed General Hayes, or was it a dark cloud that followed me regardless of who was up or down during any particular snapshot of the campaign. First, I missed the ending of the primary. The only one on the bus not plugged in. The only one as in the dark as beyond the headlights can be. Then I missed the great white. I was sure he was in the area, but he managed to slip away whenever I got close. Then I got word of Nick. And everything else seemed trivial. A weird thing happened, though. I saw every day as a miracle, something not to be taken for granted. If it was a beautiful spring day, it was very apparent to me that this day, this very day, was one of a kind, that soon it will be gone forever. And Nick was one of a kind, and soon he will be gone forever. I tried hard to remember how lucky I was to have walked the earth the same time as he did, to have known him. But it was easy to forget that we share the earth together at the same time through magic. And then Nick was gone. And miracle was not a word I'd use to describe it. And all I could remember was that magic was an illusion. Except maybe black magic. Then I was attacked by gout. At the time, I thought it was the worst pain I could stand. Hard to believe what a wuss I thought I was when it came to pain. I was on crutches through the worst part of the summer. And through it all, I lived in the worst place I ever lived in. Except for here, that is. That place was pretty bad, though. It was wedged between a junkyard on one side and a kind of repo car lot on the other. The car lot was likely to have people coming in at all hours of the night to pick up their car. In the junkyard would occasionally get deliveries that would make the earth shake and dust rise. Rats fell at home in my front yard. Since I had no idea this fucking asylum even existed, I thought I hit the bottom of the barrel. Whoever said that ignorance is bliss has no imagination, I'll tell you that much. And at the carnival that year, the roller coaster was the ride of choice, among Democrats anyway. But you know, it was the kind of roller coaster that, from early on, Obama could see a clear view of victory, and Hillary, well, she motivated tons of mostly women to vote, but never quite enough to overtake Obama. Between the two of them, they were registering millions of first-time voters that, if they all voted in November, would be very formidable indeed. And on the Republican side, they went with the best of the old white guys. Not a good lot, I must say. It looked like fun for blue state type tourists, and it was. But what happened with Nick, and the rats in the yard, and the throbbing pain, every hop, every step of the way, up to the third floor walk up, and the death the summer is on sales and finances, it was kind of tough to get all psyched up about hope and change. History was being made. and I was too busy waiting for its magic to touch me, wondering why it didn't, to even care about the great white. Definitely in my sights now, if only I was looking.